he does not listen, ever. Maybe, is this the tipping point for him? Did you get the feeling he really wants to change?
I don't know. I think he wants to be president, Sean, more than anything else on the planet. I think you can agree he has more political ambition than almost anybody in the Democrat Party. And I think he understands that the entire country is moving center-right and is accelerating at a rapid pace. In fact, we are course correcting after 4 failed years under Joe Biden and all of the woke stuff and the anti-common sense movement. Gavin Newsom had me on his podcast, and I was shocked all of a sudden where he decided to diverge away from the orthodox opinion in the Democrat Party, which is as simple as saying that it's not fair that a biological man can compete in female sports. Now, number one, I don't believe that he actually has any heartfelt beliefs in this. I think it's purely political transactional. However, everybody in the audience should understand this means that we are winning at such a rapid pace that the governor of the largest state in the country, the largest Democrat state, who obviously wants to be president, has to adjust his policies against the base of the party to even be taken seriously to run for president in 2028.
Tell me if this sounds familiar. The guy with the movie star grin, the glossy press releases, and the recycled buzzwords tries to sell you paradise, then hands you a bill for the wreckage. That's the public's take tonight, and you can feel it.
And look, there was this back and forth where I drilled him. I said, look, you have the highest cost of living in California. You have the most homelessness in the country in California. You have the highest poverty rate in the country in California. You have the second highest home prices in the country. You guys control the House, the Senate, the governor's mansion, lieutenant governor's mansion, secretary of state, and the attorney general, and every statewide elected office for the last 20 years. How is this Republicans' fault? What record are you going to run on? And you could, every time there's anything California specific, you know this from moderating the wonderful DeSantis debate, he gets hyper aggressive and focuses on one little minute detail, and he just tries to bring you down into the ditch. But everyone has been voting with their feet when it comes to California over the last couple of years. They have net population loss. People are leaving in record numbers. They also had the highest gas prices, unnecessarily the highest gas tax. And so, look, there's nothing to run on except for the fact that he is very slippery and slick, and he's trying to reinvent and rebrand himself. And look, I'll talk to anybody at any time. There was a whole part
boiling online, at kitchen tables, and in every group chat where people are asking the same simple question. How did a state with everything end up with nothing working? Yes, we're talking about Gavin Newsom. And yes, this is the clip everyone's sharing. You're in the right place. The core event? A polished politician walked into a conversation expecting applause and ran into a
Last night, trying to put my son to bed, he's like, no, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie going to be here? What time? And I'm like, dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13. He's like, no. This morning, wakes up at 6 something. He's like, I'm coming. I'm like, he literally would not leave the house.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is
you canceled school for like 2 years. One day.
The point is the point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you. I'm kidding.
When you go to these college campuses, I love watching your TikTok, which is next level. And clearly, that's expressed by my 13-year-old son.
I want to meet this guy.
Yeah, I actually.
He's coming to a Turning Point event this summer, Tampa, Florida, Student Action Summit.
I actually am by the way, if
you should be concerned.
But actually, let me say, here is why I'm concerned, because you have expressed that I should be concerned as a Democrat, that we're getting
sledgehammer named Charlie Kirk. The result wasn't a debate. It was a demolition, California style. And if you came for fireworks, buckle in, because what you're about to hear is the part the media trims out. Here's why this matters right now. We're not just grading a governor's hairstyle. We're weighing the future of the biggest state in the country and the test run for a national pitch. You feel the stakes every time yet another friend says they're leaving, every time a store shutters, every time a school lowers the bar and calls it progress. I'm going to walk you through what happened when the glossy narrative hit the granite of reality, why the receipts cut deeper than any insult, and how that gap between expectation and reality became the story. And stay with me, because there are 3 moments ahead you won't want to miss. The instant Newsom tried to pivot to the middle and accidentally agreed with his critic on fairness in women's sports, the homelessness shell game where billions vanished and the sidewalks still turned into tent cities, and the quiet confession hidden in his travel schedule, the one that screams, I want the presidency, louder than any denial ever could. Let's set the first scene, because context matters. Picture the stage lights, the polished script, the new hand gesture he's been rehearsing, the one you saw on cable news with the slow, careful cadence meant to say, "I'm sensible, I'm safe, I'm inevitable." It's the Instagram filter of politics. And then across from him sits Kirk, who doesn't show up with velvet gloves. He shows up with a calculator, a couple of charts, and an attitude that says, "Say the line again, Governor, and this time explain the results." Expectation, statesman. Reality, a man doing performance art about competence while the audience is staring at the scoreboard. Second best point first, because it stings fast and sets the tone. Homelessness. California poured in sums that could bankroll a small country, and what did the streets get in return? Rows of tents, sidewalks rebranded as encampments, and a new industry of consultants producing glossy PDFs about compassion. The context is cinematic. Downtown corridors that once sold the California dream now look like post-apocalyptic set pieces, shopping bags replaced by biohazard cleanup crews, small businesses turning into boarded windows. Application. Families don't jog those blocks anymore. Shopkeepers keep a phone in one hand and a resignation letter in the other, and the so-called temporary solutions keep getting permanent budgets. Framing. This is the purest example of the show versus the substance. It's the promise of housing first with housing later. It's build back better with build replaced by briefings. And when Kirk says this out loud, he's not breaking news. He's speaking the truth everyone can see with their own eyes and smell with their own lungs. Now the strongest point, the one that detonates the storyline. The governor tried to edge toward the middle on a live mic, and for a split second, the mask slipped. On the exploding issue of biological males competing in women's sports, he didn't dodge. He didn't filibuster. The account from the room is simple. He agreed on fairness. Not a 600-word euphemism. A direct acknowledgement. Context. For years, California's leadership framed dissent on this topic as cruelty, not concern. Application. One sentence of honesty from the very top sends a signal downstream, to school boards, to parents, to athletes who've been told their objections are bigotry rather than sportsmanship. Framing. It's the crack in the dam. Expectation was that the orthodoxy was settled. Reality is that the country is moving center-right on basic fairness, and even the most camera-ready progressive knows it. That's not a small shift. That's a forecast. And then the rest of the ledger, the long middle where expectations go to die. Crime first. Under $950 isn't a felony. It's a lifestyle, became the joke because it felt true. Context. You've seen the viral clips. Teams of thieves walking past disarmed clerks, owls turned into smash-and-grab highways, customers acting like extras in a disaster film as alarms bleat into the void. Application. Retailers retreat, workers lose hours, neighborhoods lose anchors, and the state loses credibility. Framing. Justice reimagined as a shrug is not mercy. It's abdication that lands hardest on the very communities politicians claim to protect, schools. Context. The richest state in the union locking kids out of classrooms, then calling lowered standards equity, then issuing diplomas like a participation ribbon for surviving the policy experiment. Application. Parents with means hire tutors or leave. Parents without means get speeches. Teachers carry the load, students carry the consequences, bureaucrats carry on. Framing. Nothing is more cynical than congratulating a generation for clearing a bar you quietly lowered while quietly knowing those kids will pay the price later in paychecks, confidence, and civic power, energy. Context. Shutting down power plants before securing reliable backups, then acting shocked when the grid wheezes in a heat wave, as if air conditioning were a luxury and not a basic necessity in a state with more sunshine than a Pixar movie. Application. Rolling blackouts, small factories delaying production, seniors staring at dead thermostats while press conferences blame everything but decisions. Framing. You do not fight climate change with press releases. You fight it with engineering, sequencing, and humility about physics. Expectation. The future arrives on schedule. Reality. The lights go out on a Tuesday. Wildfires. Context. A leader who blames every acre on climate while underinvesting in the boring, unglamorous work that prevents fuel buildup, forest management, clearing, controlled burns. Application. Each summer becomes a roulette wheel. Insurance market seize up. Families in fire zones live with a go bag by the door. Framing. Climate is real, and so is responsibility. Pretending they cancel each other out is how you get the worst version of both, taxes and exodus. Context. The highest earners get hunted like an ATM, the middle class gets squeezed like a lemon, and the promise is that service quality will make it all worth it. Application. Families quietly list the house, startups relocate, retirees do the math and pick a different sunset. Framing. A model that punishes staying and rewards leaving is not a model. It's a countdown to be by the time Kirk is finished reading receipts. You can feel the room tilt. He doesn't need a nickname or a meme. He needs a whiteboard and the question that turns a speech into an autopsy. Explain the outcomes. And here's where the presidential ambition slips through the veneer. The travel schedule, the red state tours, the cable hits. All the world's a stage, and California is supposed to be the resume. But a resume with blackouts, boarded-up retail, declining scores, and the déjà vu of emergency-level homelessness? That's not a launch pad. That's a warning labeled, "Let's talk about tone," because it matters. The governor's aura is a brand. Calm, confident, cool. Toothpaste add leadership. But leadership isn't lighting. Leadership is choosing the hard thing when the cameras are off. And throughout this exchange, the pattern keeps repeating. Expectation, adult in the room. Reality, a man who treats governance like a TED Talk and results like someday's problem. He auditions for the role of national unifier, then returns home to a state that feels like an experiment no one consented to on higher education. The tension breaks the surface. You hear the disdain for a culture that confuses credentials with wisdom, the way a ruling class sneers at the people who kept the lights on, until, of course, the lights flickered. That's not anti-learning. It's anti-snobbery. It's the reminder that value isn't produced by a diploma on a wall. It's produced by competence, grit, and outcomes. And when Kirk says most of America didn't go to the same 5 schools that populate a donor list, he's not picking a fight with knowledge. He's picking a fight with the credential cartel that excuses failure because the PowerPoint looked clean. Let's drop back into the city street for a second, because scenes tell the truth policies try to hide. It's 1 a.m. in San Francisco. Would you let your kid walk alone? You already answered in your gut. That is the measure no pollster can smooth over. Not the vibe, the reality, the smell in the air, the glance over your shoulder, the decision to cross the street. When a leader spends more time redefining normal than restoring it,